All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today's topic is for our listing agent, the forms that have to fill out. So, to get started, uh, go to www.ljagent.com. Once you on that website, you can click on dot loop, click on sign in, and once you're logged in, you want to click on add loop. So, here, first is asking for the loop name. It says property address or MLS. It says unsure of the property address. Put in your client's name for now, but you can always change it later. So, so we're adding an add loop. So let's say it's the Khan. He's a seller, and let's say Mr. Hassan, you're the listing agent. So Mr. Khan, he's the seller, and Hassan is the agent. So that's the name of our loop. We're gonna click on continue. For the template, we're going to select seller for the listing template so we can get all the forms for the seller. Photo, we always skip it, right? And then click on view loop. So these are the documents that the system is giving you, okay? We all know the agency disclosure that we are using for our buyer side, but for the seller side is the same form, but just the different check boxes, right? This form was provided to me by, this goes to the listing agent's name, right? And has our company name already. And you're the agent, listing agent is representing the seller, and he's a seller's agent. And then where it says I, we, this is where the seller's full legal name goes, right? So it could be MCON, right? And who's signing? Obviously the seller. And then you can click on signature, assign field, and assign a seller here. Okay. So this is your basic disclosure for you for the seller, agency disclosure, right? Second, this is the most important, is your exclusive right to sell. This form is the most important form. This form will give you the right to list the property on MLS and be the listing agent for this seller until the time that for the agreement here, which we'll go over number 12, right? So from the top here, it says ML. This is the MLS ID number here. Obviously, it's not on MLS yet, so you can leave it blank. Then you have your property address, right? So let's say it's 123 Main Street, and the listing price. Obviously, the listing price is the price that the seller is agreeing on, right? Before that, you're already providing them with the different comps, different materials, and recommending that hey, you should list the property around this price range. But ultimately, it's got to be the seller deciding how much they want to sell it for or list it for, right? So let's say $500,000, right? The things that they have to fill out, right? You can go through these one by one, but its number starts with number 6. This is how you're going to get paid, right? So the owner hereby agrees to pay broker total commission in the amount of or the percentages, right? It could be a flat fee of $10,000, $20,000, any X amount of money, or a percentage, right? That's a total amount that total percentage that the seller is going to pay. So it could be if it's over $1 million property in Queens, most likely they will not pay more than 2 to 3%. You know, the seller. But then all this is negotiated. Different properties, different sellers, different amounts, right? So let's say they agreed on 4%. He says, hey, you sell this $500,000, I'm going to give you 4% total. Half will go to you as a listing agent, and half will go to the buyer's agent, right? But a lot of you guys get confused here. Say, hey, there's two parties involved, but why there's three different fields here? why there's one for seller's agent, one for broker's agent, and one for buyer's agent. Even though there are three fields here, only two people get paid. Obviously, the listing agent who's selling the property will definitely get paid, right? So out of that 4%, half, if he says it's going to a listing agent, so 2% is going to the seller's agent, right? The listing agent. Now the other half, which is 2%, either goes to the broker's agent or the buyer's agent. And we spoke about this before too. 99% of the time is going to be the buyer's agent getting that 2%, right? But there could be a relationship with the client through a broker, and there's no buyer's agent as a broker's agent, right? And that would be two. If this person gets 2%, obviously this person does not exist. So it's always the listing agent getting that half, and either the broker's agent getting 2% or the buyer's agent getting 2%. Okay. This does not mean that the seller is going to pay 6%. He's not. He's going to pay only 4%. Okay. That's why you see on MLS that, sometimes they have a listing agent zero because they don't have to disclose it, but broker's agent and buyer's agent, they do have to disclose how much they're going to get paid. It's always one party. All right. Then the number 7 says, hey, the above compensation shall be paid by the to the broker in the event of a owner enters into a contract of sale to sell the property or actually sells the property within a period of how many days. So you're saying that, hey, after this agreement is terminated, the broker or the listing agent still has a right to that commission, and majority of the time is 0 days, unless you say, hey, 15 days, 30 days, but majority of the time, if the agreement ends tonight, the seller is going to say, hey, I'm not going to pay you anything if I go under contract tomorrow with a different party. Okay. And then number 12, how long is this agreement for? Typically either 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Before I move forward, Mr. Hassan, you had a question?
Yes, good morning. Yeah,
Morning.
I have a question about that. If you put the broker or the listing agent zero, is that considered to be, suppose you have obviously you have to have the percentage for you. You're selling the house and you're putting it zero. Is that considered illegal or something?
You cannot put zero here, but when you're listing it on Stratus on MLS, right?
Yeah.
Then you can put zero for your because you're the listing agent, and
Mm.
typically, agent would put zero if he's getting paid more than the buyer's agent, right? So let's just say the seller agreed to 5%, right? Let's say it was 5%, and he said, I'm going to give you 3%, and you can give 2% to the buyer's agent, right? So you're putting 3, 2 here, right?
Mm.
But now when you go and you list it on MLS, on Stratus, right? There you're telling other agents that they cannot see how much you're getting paid. So you could put
Okay.
zero there. But on this agreement, the seller does need to know that you're getting paid 3 and the other party's getting paid 2.
The seller would know that, should
Yeah.
know that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
seller should know that. Yeah, you can, if this is the case, you should tell them the reasons. If you're gonna do a lot of advertisement, you're gonna do a lot of open houses. You're gonna do a lot for them, and they say, and tell, give them the
Mostly,
reasoning.
yeah, mostly it is that the case that the listing agent get more than the buying agent. Is that right?
No, no, typically, I mean, majority of the deals that I dealt with were 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, they were. Believe it or not, I dealt with some transaction. I don't know how it worked for them, but the listing agent got paid less than what I got paid as a buyer's agent. So I have seen that cases too. So I don't know what happened there, but that happened a couple of times.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Right. So you have your commission structure here. How many days you have after the contract, right? And when does the agreement end? So, like we said, either 3 months, 6 months, or a year. A year are very rare now. Typically, 6 months is what the seller would agree to, 3 or 6 months. Um, but you put that date that you guys agree on. So let's just say it's just 3 months, right? And then on page two, uh, what we have to fill out is number 24, number 25, and 26. So number 24, it says agent is or is not hereby authorized to use a lockbox, right? This would be if the property is vacant, then the seller will say, hey, agent, go ahead. I give you the right to put up a lockbox there. Okay. Then number 25, it says, hey, the agent has or agent is or is not authorized to place a for sale sign on the property, right? Again, if the property is vacant, they will definitely, the seller will say, no problem, put up a for sale sign. If they're living there and if they're living there for quite some time and they don't want their neighbors to know that they're selling the property, they might ask you, hey, please don't put up a for sale sign. So that you guys either, they agree or not, right? Right. And again, if the property is vacant or not, the owner give permission or does not give permission, right? uh, to the agent to share keys, right, to the property with cooperating brokers. 99% of the time, this right here is no, unless it's a lockbox. You can, select that. Okay, so number 24, 25, 6, they have to be filled. And after that is just, again, you're sending it for e-signatures, just like how you were doing any other forms there, right? Then you have your owner's residence address where they're living currently, right? Then you have your listing agent. This is your name. And if you have a co-listing agent, and you can put another agents here, right? So again, this form is the most important form for you to have signed if you want to be exclusive agent or a listing agent for a property. And anytime MLS has any conflict, to know, who's the listing agent, this is the form that they come look for. Okay. So we have the agency disclosure. We have the right to sell, seller's commission agreement, right? This would come in during the contract, right? So once you have found them, a buyer, and you have an offer accepted, and you send the deal sheet, the offer letter, and all that good stuff to your attorney, you're gonna send this sheet along with it, so the seller can sign this, right? The seller can sign this commission agreement while he's signing the other contract. So this one says the date. It is hereby agreed by the seller, right? This is going to be the seller's name, um, the current address, and the total commission. Even though our listing exclusive right to sell commission might be 4%, right? But now over the last 45 days or whatnot, you're hosting open house, you're getting different offers, and now maybe it's a dual agency and you want to reduce your commission or increase your commission, whatever the case might be. This form here, once he signs this will overwrite the first one, because this is what he's actually agreeing on the contract, right? So let's just say the commission went from 3% to 4%, or it went from 3% to 2%. You would put that amount here. And then it says for bringing about the sale for the property address. This is going to be the property address and the buyer's names and the commission splits. So the seller needs to know the exact commission splits, that hey, 12,000 is going to LJ Realty team for Hassan Raza, and then maybe 12,000 is going to Keller Williams, an agent named Glenn, right? So both of them would be here, and then the seller would sign these, right? The listing broker could sign it, but most important is the seller signing it. Okay. So when you, obviously you, this deal sheet here, now because you're representing the seller, all the information to your left, right? You should have all that information. All the way to the right now, you're asking the buyer's agent if you don't know any of the information, right? But for the seller side, their name, address, phone number, email, and then seller's attorney and the seller's broker, which should be you, and then the buyer's attorney, and the bride's broker, and the commission splits again. And the bottom here, you want to make your attorney's life a little bit easier by putting in all the information for that offer accepted, what type of loan they're getting, if there's any home inspection, if there's any appraisal contingencies, any of those sort, anything that the attorney would need, you would add it here. Okay. Lead paint disclosure, this you can definitely send that out, or your attorney will send this with the contract. Okay, but it must be filled out by all parties: the seller, the purchaser, the agent. Okay, and this is a lead paint, basically lead paint disclosure must be signed. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, for the seller to actually get you or give you a listing, right? This form has helped us a lot, all our agents here. So I highly recommend that if you haven't used this, use this, for every your listing presentation, where you're taking your exclusive right, you're taking your agency disclosure, but this estimate for the seller, right? This is the actual takeaway amount that they're gonna take, right, after the closing. This one, you just go down the list. Already agreed on, hey, 100, $500,000 listing price. You ask them, hey, what is your current loan? Or ask them how many mortgages do they do have. Sometimes they have one mortgage, sometimes they have two of them. So you're trying to get the total loan amount, right? This is going to be, they have to pay that before they can, or during closing, before they take home any amount. First, they have to pay the people that they owe, which are the banks, right? So let's just say it's $300,000 is owed to the bank, right? So for the transfer tax, if the owner is living in the five boroughs, right, in New York City, there's a different tax. Or if they're living in Long Island, just then New York State, there's a different tax. So if you're living in Long Island, for New York State transfer tax, the rate is 0.4. And if you're living in New York City, the five boroughs, the transfer tax is 1.4, right? So New York City seller has to pay total, adding these two up, 1.8. And they cannot run away from this. They have to pay that at the closing. But now, if this is just a Long Island seller only pays zero point 0.4. It's a huge difference. And a lot of agents don't know this, and a lot of sellers don't know this, and it usually comes to a surprise at the closing. So let's say if they're selling a house for $500,000, right, minus 8, it's $9,000 if you're living in New York City. So you definitely want to be, you're a professional, you're a realtor. So when you're advising them, you want to tell them, hey, even though you want to, get paid X amount of money, end of the day, this expense you cannot run away from. Obviously, if this is a surprise to them, you can say, hey, we can increase the listing price a little bit to see, what kind of offers we get. Then the commission we spoke about earlier, let's just say is 4% total. 2 goes to you, 2% goes to the selling agent, right? Buyer's agent, attorney fees, right? And then you're adding all of these up, right? So 10,000 here, 10,000 here. So let's do the math. What their takeaway amount would be at the closing. 200,000, right? 500,000 minus 300,000, 200,000 left, minus 9,000 for transfer tax, minus $20,000 for the fees, minus 14 for the attorneys. 169, right? So if you do this math right in front of them with your calculator, they first they know that they think that you know your stuff, which you do, right? And there should be no surprises at the closing. And then based on this number, you can ask them, hey, is this the amount that you were thinking about? This is what your true equity looks like. This is when you purchased it and now you're selling it. After that, this is what you're taking home, you know? And now some of them will ask you for capital gain. Just for your knowledge, if it's a single person filing a single, tax returns, they have up to $250,000 tax break for their capital gain. So capital gain is basically if you buy something and then you sell something. If you make money out of it, government wants a percentage out of that too. Okay, but they give you a break if you're individual. $250,000 profit you make, you don't pay anything on, but anything on top of that, you do have to pay that. But if it's a couple now, so they'll double it. So up to $500,000, the government will give you a break for capital gain. So that might be a question that they ask you. But your takeaway amount should be this or around that, right? And again, like I said, you can give two or three different examples for for this client. So 525, 480, 500,000, and see which one they go with. But this breakdown is really important and it really gets you the listing quickly. Okay, right. When you're hosting your open house and everything, this is your open house guest list, right? You're just asking for their names and phone numbers, right? What this is that if the person came to see an open house and you're following up the next day and if they don't like the property, you're just looking for their feedback. And if they don't like the property, you can tell them, hey, I can show you another property or add you to our system if they're not working with another agent, right? So there could be a good lead source for hosting open houses. So this list really helps with that. Okay, these are your forms. Any questions, concerns on this? Anything I missed? Hassan, this was your topic. You think I cleared it? Your questions?
Yes, yeah, most of them, especially the you know the thing about the expenses the seller has to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose all the you this thing, yeah, all
Yeah.
the have to tell the seller that this amount you have to pay at the closing. So
Yeah.
suppose it is the $500,000 house, and their expenses around 30,000.
N-
So should we, or is that the good way to tell them? The you have to list price 530. Is that right?
Yeah, or I would just go line by line. Sometimes you're just trying to build trust with them. So, like you're asking for the current loan amount, right? You're asking them, you're doing all this right in front of them.
Mm.
So don't just say, "Hey, it's gonna be around $30,000 expenses," because then they will be like $30,000. But you want to give them a full breakdown. Hey, your transfer tax is gonna be 9,000 or 12,000, whatever you do the calculation.
Mm.
The listing fees, even the listing fees, you're gonna tell them, "Hey, you're paying 4%, but two definitely gonna go to me, and two definitely gonna go to the buyer side." And then this might be a good time to talk to them and say, hey, if there's a direct buyer, right, a buyer doesn't have any other agent, and I'll just charge you 3% total instead of 4% total,
Mhm.
so you can do those type of negotiation, because end of the day you're competing with other agents out there and you want to get that listing is one of the toughest one to get, but you want to give them different scenarios so they can pick one.
This thing is also happen if I listed this house, and suppose I have a buyer too. So
Yeah.
can I sell it that too, and the seller aware of that all the commission is getting me, and it's okay. Is that right?
Yes, so it's not just verbal, it's okay, right? We have to fill out the agency disclosure again with dual agency now, where they're clearly telling, I mean, they're signing it, the disclosure form telling you, hey, we're fine with the dual agency, you know? But the amount,
Seller,
the commission, yeah,
is
the
that right?
commission, what was that?
Seller has nothing to do with that.
No, no, seller does. Seller has to sign that.
Oh, seller too. Okay.
Yeah, both parties. If a dual agency occurs, right, the seller and the
Oh,
buyer
seller.
needs to sign it. Yeah, they both have to sign it saying that, hey, that we know that there's only one agent involved,
Mhm. Got it.
right? Yeah. But commission wise, right, you should get like legally you can get 4%, right? Like just say whatever you guys agreed on. But I'm saying in order to get that listing on this presentation, you can tell the seller, hey, if I get a buyer directly, instead of 4%, I'll charge you 3%,
Okay.
right? Because there's no other agent involved. Does it make sense, right?
Yeah, that's the trick. The seller.
Yeah. Yeah, you tell them, yeah. I mean, the way I speak, I always say that too. Hey, if you have a buyer, right, there's no other agent involved, again, I'll charge you 3%, or I'll charge, because it could be a relative of his, but you're gonna be doing the negotiation and all that. Just say, hey, if there's no other agent involved, I'll reduce it. If you want to reduce it, you don't have to. But I'm just saying it's one of those strategies to get that listing,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
Okay, sure. Any other questions, concerns, guys? All right. If that's that, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you guys next time, okay?
Okay.